It's time to explore the world according to Glenn. I'm Kevin Jacobsen. Glenn Close is my favorite actress, and this show is all about exploring the career of one of the finest actors of her generation. Each episode, I'll be joined by a guest as we dive into one of Glenn's movies, TV shows, or stage productions, going chronologically through her career, discussing her performance, and assessing the project itself. And today, we're diving into Glenn in guest star mode, covering her cameo in Hook and her 2 episodes hosting Saturday Night Live.
Time nominee Glenn Close, motherfuckers.
My guest today, I feel like I've always introduced my guests as one of my favorite people, but this person is my true favorite above all. You have heard him on the Best Actress series on And the Runner-Up Is, chatting the 1987 lineup, where we talked about Glenn and Fatal Attraction, by the way, as well as the 2022 lineup. Both super fun discussions. Usually I introduce him as my partner, but now I can officially welcome him as my fiancé. Welcome to the show, Sebastian Gronback.
Hello, it's me. I'm back on the show. And I'm very excited to talk about 2 things. Technically 3, but it's actually 2.
Yes. It's going to be a fun one, folks. It's going to be a little different than we usually do it. But
this is like one of those like side episodes.
yeah, it's almost like a bonus.
Yes.
But before we talk SNL and Hook, would love to know more about your relationship with Glenn Close overall, and if you remember when you first saw her and took notice, and if you have a favorite performance from her. I feel like I kind of know this already, but
yeah.
For the class.
I didn't grow up as a big movie person. I was a big TV person. So it's not like Glenn Close came to me through like Fatal Attraction or Dangerous Liaisons or even really like 101 Dalmatians. I mean, I was aware of her, but I think the big Glenn project for me has always been Damages.
Here we are again.
Yeah, we're back to Damages. Damages is such a great show. A lot of people talk about, like Mad Men and Breaking Bad and shows like that like started that big wave of those prestige cable TV dramas. But people cannot forget that Damages was there right at the start, and Glenn was there really, really killing it on cable TV.
Yes. And I believe, didn't you have the DVD of the first season of Damages?
You better believe I watched it at least once or twice, that first season of Damages. I think it's such incredible TV. So much so that I remember we were out on a walk in the neighborhood last week, and I pulled the name Arthur Frobisher out of my head. The name of Ted Danson's character in the first couple seasons of Damages. I mean, it's a great show, and I'm really, really looking forward to watching it again. I can't wait to watch the whole thing.
Yes, you'll be watching along with me. I will be forcing you to sit there and watch with me, but it won't be too much of an ask. I know.
You don't have to force me to watch Damages. I'll watch Damages anytime. And what I love about that show, and what I'm really excited to check out again, is that was really just like a big pop-off moment for Rose Byrne. Mm-hmm. And now that she's kind of like a big deal, I'm excited to go back and watch her like at the start.
Yeah. And I think she really grew as an actress over the course of that show. I remember at first being like, okay, this is the Glenn Close show, and I'm all focused on her. But by the end, I was like, this is a real two-hander. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think it was last Christmas. You got the big Damages box set. So now we have all of Damages, including the direct TV seasons on disc.
Yes.
So
that time that they, for some reason, ended it on FX after 3 seasons, and then it went to Audience Network. Remember Audience Network?
No, that doesn't sound like something that is real.
That is also what happened to Friday Night Lights, I believe.
I do remember that. Yep.
Yeah. What a moment in time. The
What
20.
that
Yeah.
that weird period in television in between cable and Netflix where people were like, we don't really know where to put things.
Yeah.
But I digress. We're not
Yes.
here to talk about damages, no
No,
matter
we're
how
not.
much I like it. I just
Unfortunately.
I just want to go on the record and say that my favorite film, Glenn, is Fatal Attraction.
Okay.
I know we already talked about it
Mm-hmm.
when I was on the show previously, but I just want to say that is like a capital iconic performance.
Yeah. And she stepped into her moment. She knew it was going to be big. And she put her whole Glenn Close into it.
She absolutely delivered, as she does.
Yeah. And we may be talking about how she absolutely delivers even in these kind of fun little one off circumstances as well this week. Talking about SNL and Hook in the late 80s and early 90s. So, yes, we're going to be doing something a little different this week than we normally do. We've talked about Glenn as an Earth Mother type in the beginning of her career, and then a little bit with Sarah Plain and Tall. Also, we've talked about her iconic villain performances in Fatal Attraction and Dangerous Liaisons. But another fun area of Glenn's career is her guest spots and cameos, which she has done quite a few of over the years in both film and TV. So, we'll be talking about her two hosting stints for Saturday Night Live, which took place in 1989 and 1992. And then we'll be discussing her highly regarded cameo in 1991's Hook as Gutless, the pirate, buried under pounds and pounds of makeup. So, this is an era of Glenn having fun. She is a well established star at this point, popular in the industry. She's made a lot of friends, including Steven Spielberg, which we'll talk about later. But as with anyone with some heat in their career, Lorne Michaels, the boss at SNL, asked her to do the show in this prime era of her career, starting first with 1989. So her first episode aired on February 25th, 1989. This was right in the middle of Dangerous Liaisons being released wide in theaters, and she had gotten her Oscar nomination for that just about a week or two before. And, we often see stars as part of their Phase 2 campaign hosting SNL to show off some of their versatility, which Glenn certainly did in this episode. But this was SNL's 14th season, just to give people a sense of the era, who the cast was. For repertory players, we had Dana Carvey, Nora Dunn, Phil Hartman, Jan Hooks, Victoria Jackson, John Lovitz, Kevin Nealon, and Dennis Miller, who was the Weekend Update anchor. And the featured players, those who were just starting out in their first few seasons of the show, were A. Whitney Brown, Al Franken, and Mike Myers. So, with that, we are both SNL watchers. We've been watching for years now, pretty much every new episode, unless we don't care for the host. But I would love to just get your sense of SNL, your relationship to that, and your favorite era, its place as a TV institution, just overall thoughts on SNL.
I get the sense that like a lot of people our age, early mid 30s, I started watching SNL right around the time that the digital shorts started. So that's
Mm-hmm.
really my crew is Andy Samberg, Jason Sudeikis, Bill Hader, the Amy Poehler, Tina Fey era, really big, and of course Seth Meyers, really big. So like they always say that whatever era of SNL you grow up watching is the one that is like your era, and
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely mine. I think the show obviously is one of the biggest shows that has like ups and downs a lot over the course of its career. I think we're about to enter a really odd place for SNL because I know that they're doing like a soft reboot of the show. I
The
think in this
cast, yeah.
coming 51st season, I have no
Mm-hmm.
idea what it's going to look like, but I know that of like the current cast that was on. Like I love Andrew Dismukes. I think he's really funny. Bowen Yang has really broken out over the last like 4 or 5 years as one of the big people on the show. Um, I really hope that they keep Kenan Thompson on the show for as long as the show runs, because he just feels like such a solid force on that show. Heidi Gardner's funny. Chloe Fineman is funny. I think they
Heidi is
have
now
a,
gone.
yeah, Heidi's now gone. Ego Odom, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is one of the best finds that they've had of the last 2 years. She's
Yep.
really good on the show. She's been on it for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
I think the previous cast was good. I don't know what the new cast is going to look like, but it'll be interesting to see what the show starts to look like now. This era of the episodes that we watched, I've never seen before. I haven't
Mm.
really gone back and watched episodes from the 80s and 90s, so it was a very different experience to watch these particular episodes.
Yes, very much so. And I have a very complicated history and relationship with SNL. It's definitely that kind of thing that you just talked about, where whatever you really kind of started with SNL, that's kind of the bar, whatever you got into it. So yes, in both of our cases, definitely that Bill Hader, Andy Samberg, Kristen Wiig, Fred Armisen, Jason Sudeikis, Seth Meyers, that era really feels like the golden era for us. I think you also had like John Mulaney as a head writer too, and it just felt like a bunch of goofy theater people and comedy nerds just kind of being stupid together, but in a very endearing way, I would say. I think all of Kristen Wiig's recurring characters, I know she's divisive and they kind of used her a lot, but loved all of that. Will Forte with MacGruber always hits. Just those kinds of stupid original ideas I'm always more fond of than the political sketches. I think the political sketches usually feel to me like easy plays to the audience, that kind of like clapter comedy, as they say, where it's more about getting the audience to sort of clap and agree with whatever political stance you're taking or making some kind of statement rather than just making you laugh. So for me, it's not really what I come to the show for. I think you probably agree with that. I think it's kind of corny and self-congratulatory more often than not.
Yeah, the biggest issue that I always have, and I found it here especially with the like cultural commentary political sketches, that they usually don't age well.
Right.
And like whenever we go back and watch an older episode, I'm always like, "Oh, well, here's a political sketch. Let me just fast forward through this so I can get to the comedy." It's not something that I'm really interested in. I think the best sketches on SNL are the ones that are just very goofy bits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I bump up against the show a little bit. So I rarely get anything out of the cold open, which is usually where they place those topical sketches. Even if it's things that I know very well about, like that are in the news currently, I'm just like, okay, I don't really get much out of this, even though I guess it has its place. They tend to be the most viewed and most shared clips by certain people. But I feel like they're not really like for the people who love SNL necessarily so much as the casual viewer, right?
Yeah.
But related to that, I do find it just very difficult going back and looking at eras like this where you don't have all that much context. I certainly felt that watching the 1989 episode. But what were your thoughts on Glenn and her first hosting stint and your overall thoughts on that episode?
I thought it was it's a good episode of SNL because of the fact that I'm not a big history buff in the 80s and I was not alive. A lot of the cultural news sketches kind of flew right over my head. Didn't really understand what the news of the day was that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And there were certainly a few bits in there. The cold open, I think, and a lot of the stuff in Weekend Update was stuff that I didn't quite get. But all of the stuff that Glenn was in, I thought was good. I think people tend to underestimate her comedy abilities, which I think are strong. I think this is certainly a taste of what she would start to do. And I think once she hits the 90s and does the 101 Dalmatians and things like that. She really shows that she has a lot of comedy chops, and I think the reason why is because she's willing to really go for it in comedy just as much as she's willing to go for it in drama. Like because of the fact that she's a big theater actress and
Mm.
that SNL is basically live theater, she feels very comfortable on the stage. And you can tell it in this one and in the other episode too.
Yes, I agree. And it also brings me to another comparison point that, Glenn and Meryl Streep are often compared throughout their career. They came up around the same time, they dominated the 80s. And then I think in both of their cases, they wanted to avoid being typecast too much as just the dramatic actress. And it's literally around the same time that this was happening too, where Meryl started to do things like She Devil and Death Becomes Her and these more goofier comedies to show that she had a sense of humor. And I think Glenn was pretty much doing the same thing around this era, trying to do different things, showing her versatility and showing up for these silly little guest spots and cameos. And I think that was good for her career to show that she didn't want to be typecast, that she was versatile. So, yes, I thought she was good. I love how much she was game to do silly voices and accents. I also think it's a sign of trust from the writers whenever the host is made to be like the weird one or the funny one in a scene, as opposed to the straight man kind of reacting to the weirdness. We always go back to, for example, January Jones, where sometimes the writers seem to not exactly know how to channel someone's humor or, use them in the best way, or they're just not really particularly funny. So they just make them the person that's kind of like curiously reacting to whatever weird presence is there. Because there's always this formula, right? Where like most of these sketches, it's like, there's this normal conversation happening, and then here comes this wacky character to kind of disrupt the status quo. But I feel like Glenn kind of got to be the focus in quite a few of these sketches,
Yeah,
you know?
she's not, as opposed to more recent sketches like in the 2010s where they get a Oscar nominated actress to react to things that are happening around her, she
Mm-hmm.
gets to be the focus of these sketches, which really shows how much confidence they had in her.
Yes. So I think they trusted her, especially because of that theater background. She knows how to perform for a live audience, and I think they probably recognized that. I think the closest we got to any kind of goofiness before SNL from her was probably Maxie, which no one really saw, to be honest, but she was mostly seen as that dramatic actress, and I do always appreciate when like a more dramatic actor or singer or whoever gets that chance. It reminds me a little bit of like how John Hamm really excelled on SNL whenever he hosted, and that was when he was only really known for Mad Men, but he was just so goofy and so game for anything that it was refreshing. And I think this sort of thing may have been for some viewers to see her in this light very refreshing, and even poking fun at herself a little bit in like the opening monologue, for example. So I would say it was a successful first go.
Yes, I definitely agree. I think this first episode is a little bit better than the second episode, but they're definitely
Mm-hmm.
two different things.
Yes. And related to what we're going to be talking about later, I found this interview in People magazine literally earlier this year about talking about her SNL stints. And she's quoted as saying, I went to Robin Williams, who was my friend. I said, do you have any advice about Saturday Night Live? And he said, just don't do anything you don't think is funny, because you get all these different fabulous ideas. And so she really took that to heart. I love their friendship. But speaking to that, I don't really have too much to say about the cold open, which feels very newsy and very contextual. She's in like a Barnes and Noble helmet, and they're at war, and there's some mention of the Ayatollah and, talking about Muslim books and whatnot.
Based on the context clues that I can understand,
Mm-hmm.
the Ayatollah is banning books,
Mm-hmm.
ergo, the U.S. forces are defending the Barnes and Noble.
Yes.
That's the most that I could get from it.
Yeah.
I was like, I think if you don't get the context, it is I was very confused. I wrote down in my notes, I do not understand the reference. I bet you if I was there in 1989, I would have gotten what was going on. But hey, she's in the opening sketch, so that's
Yes.
good for her.
Which I think is rare, even at that time, for a host to show up in the opening.
Yep.
But we have her opening monologue. She's wearing this great little blazer, this beige. She's got short hair. The crowd is super enthusiastic, I noticed, like really, really cheering for her. So that was nice to see. So then we have her kind of talking about how her mom said something about like don't talk about yourself. It's rude to talk about yourself, especially in public. So she invites out Academy Award winner William Hurt,
Boo.
her friend from The Big Chill, and I guess recreationally her friend,
Yeah.
based on the way she talked about him.
A little bit of a boo for me, but
Why is that?
'cause he is famously a huge jerk to people all the time.
Yes, he was famously.
Yes,
Yeah.
famously unkind to people and especially women.
Yeah, and especially Marley Matlin around this time. So
Yeah, right around this time,
that's alarming.
where he's angry at Marley Matlin for winning an Oscar.
Yes. Just, yeah, having read Marley Matlin's book this past year, the way she talked about him and his behavior, cocaine addled behavior, I should say, not a pretty picture. So watching him here in this era was just like, ugh, I can't even imagine what he was doing backstage. But anyway,
I know what he was doing backstage.
okay,
He was
well,
anyway.
yes. And he's kind of telling the crowd that he admires her in saying, like, complicated, yes, demanding, true, difficult at times, temperamental, oh, yes, hard to take over a long period of time. Not for me. Whether she's right for the part or not, Glenn gets the job done. That's sort of like that's the joke.
The joke is light ribbing of Glenn Close as a hard-working actress who
Yes.
is not funny.
Right. And 10% talent, 90% hard work. So rude. So rude. But she does get some fun reactions the way she kind of builds to her being like clenching her jaw over time in a very funny way. And yeah, she makes a quip about wanting to introduce him if he's ever hosting SNL. And he said he never will, which I believe is true.
I cannot think of anyone less funny at this particular moment than William Hurt.
I imagine
And
a
I
lot of
cannot,
deadpan stuff.
yeah, maybe he would be the one who's reacting to all of the crazy characters.
Yeah. So a little bit of a weird, bleak way to set up the rest of the show just by like putting down Glenn. I know that's part of the joke, but set a weird tone. It's the
Definitely,
80s. I don't know.
definitely the least funny part of the episode.
So, I mean, the next sketch we get into with Glenn is really, I think, the showcase moment of the episode for everyone, which is when she is reprising her role as Alex Forrest in a therapy session context. So this is about a year and a half after Fatal Attraction, but it is still pretty fresh in the minds of a lot of people, as you can probably tell from the audience response. Even seeing her in this like black leather jacket with the curly blonde hair is like enough for people to recognize what she's doing, which I kind of love.
Yeah, I think it's very funny to set up, like all these people in the therapy sketch, like talking about their attachment issues. And Dana Carvey, very funny in the sketch as a kind of like an agoraphobic kind of guy, doing his a little bit of a Garth voice,
Yeah,
which I
I
thought
thought
was
so too.
good. And then you pan over, and there is Glenn Close as Alex Forrest, and it gets a good reaction from the audience.
Yeah. And I love all her body language. It's so like tense and like her shoulders are up and she's smoking. The way she just delivers the lines, she really does channel Alex again, being like, well, the guy I've been obsessed with, I finally got the courage to throw acid on his car. Great comedic timing, and being like, I boiled the rabbit. She also really gets into like the intensity really well of being like, he had to be reminded that I exist. I mean, I exist. I really exist. Yeah, she just knows how to amp it up, I think, very well for the audience and still make it within the character, but still make it broad enough to be funny.
Yeah, she brings the broadness out in the character for the purpose of this sketch, which I think is really good. And I love all the other the players in the sketch being like just commenting on the events of Fatal Attraction and being like,
Yeah.
none of this stuff is good, but they're all too scared of Alex Forrest to lean too hard into telling her that she's frightening.
Yes. I think there's
Except for Dana Carvey, who repeatedly says that he would like to leave.
yes. I think there's a big recurring theme a little bit that is under, I don't know if you picked up on this too, but between the two episodes of the culture of the time of being a little bit like talk therapy and like self-love, self-help, that sort of thing, I think was very big at the time. So there's definitely some light poking at that, especially the fact that she's saying these very alarming things and everyone around her is just kind of being like, I accept you, I love you, all these things.
I mean, it's probably like the broadest part of the sketch, but my one of my favorite moments in it is right at the end where they're all, as we remember, as we all did in the 80s, making out their checks to the guy who's running the group therapy session, and she just pulls a giant knife out of her purse, and I'm like, that's funny. That is funny.
Very funny. Yes. Yep. Really good stuff. So, anything you want to say about Weekend Update? There's a lot more to do with the Ayatollah again.
There's more to do with the Ayatollah. There is a very, I think, right now at this point, kind of bleakly funny bit from A. Whitney Brown about religious fundamentalism at home and abroad, talking about how they want to overturn Roe v. Wade. And I'm like, hey, oh, yikes.
Everything old is new again.
Everything old is new again. It's just the same stuff going around and around. But Glenn is not in this Weekend Update, so I don't think there's too much we want to talk about here.
Yeah. There is also like a lightly homophobic Rock Hudson's lover joke within that.
That made me mad.
Yeah, a little bleak. It's the 80s, but still.
It's the 80s.
Also, really don't care for Dennis Miller. Just gonna throw that out there. And the speed with which he tells the jokes is just insane to me. Like, he barely even lets the punchlines land or breathe at all. So I just was so turned off by his presence.
Yeah, not my ideal Weekend Update.
Do you prefer Michael Che and Colin Jost?
Oh, you know what? Compared to this, I do prefer Michael Che and Colin Jost.
Yes, well, there you have it. There's also like a Wilford Brimley sketch. I believe it's with Phil Hartman, which I just wanted to note because she had actually worked with Wilford on The Stone Boy, and they were also in The Natural together. She doesn't appear in the sketch, but just thought that was a cute little inclusion. We also get Master Thespian, John Lovitz. And John Lovitz is a major presence in this episode. Also,
imagine living in an era where the star of SNL is John Lovitz.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the Master Thespian sketch with John Lovitz is very funny. Okay. I thought it was great. It's all about him and his relationship with a fellow thespian, and I wrote this name down because it is a grade A name, Glenn Close as Astoria Dubois V.
Yes. Perfect. She has this huge blonde wig, and it's kind of this setup of just the drama of the two of them, and the way he quickly interrupts her to say, "I'm dumping you." And then she turns it back on him and says she's only been using him to further her career. And they're making all those big catchphrase moments of Master Thespian acting. Yes.
And she like gives like 120% in this sketch. She is so game to be incredibly silly here. I think she's funnier than John Lovitz in this sketch.
Certainly.
I think if, for me personally, if there's any sketch from this particular episode you'd want to single out to watch, I think this is my favorite sketch of the night.
I would still say the Alex Forrest one just for the context, but yes, it is funny. I think they also bounce off of each other really well. They seem like they rehearsed quite a bit ahead of time because just the way they go back and forth and being like, acting, genius, thank you.
It's
All of that.
funny. It's
They
funny.
really, yeah, and they match each other's energy. When
Yeah.
she slaps him, it's a cute sketch. I think that's where you're definitely seeing more of that theater training coming into play. She's having a
Yes.
ball.
Because it's a very exaggerated version of the sort of things she's kind of used to.
Right.
Yep.
Yes. There's also this wild kind of like showcase moment, which is this 9 levels musical extravaganza. And we have once again John Lovitz, and she is sitting next to him, and he tells some crass joke. And she then launches into this thing about how he offended her on 9 different levels. And then she launches into this musical performance and is like channeling Julie Andrews in a way. And I also wrote a note here of how it sounds a little bit like Be Our Guest before Be Our Guest, just the way that played out. But yeah, huge production, multiple dancers, huge set piece.
I remember when I heard her say the phrase that offended me on 9 different levels. I'm like, I wonder what the levels are. And
There you go.
that is the sketch. And I don't remember what the levels are, but I kept on being surprised how they kept on ramping up the production value of the sketch. It feels to me a little bit sort of kind of like a predecessor of like the big musical sketches that John Mulaney will do
Yeah,
on his episodes,
I thought
where
of
it's
that
like,
too.
oh, this is like a really innocuous sort of question or comment, and then you just build and build the musicality of the sketch. I thought it was just impressive on like on a production level. I think that's another one that's worth checking out. And as we all know, and now at this point, I don't know if you have to inform me a little bit. How much like musical stuff did Glenn Close do up to this point? Because she is such a great singer. She has such a great voice.
She, again, going back to Maxie, that was really the only time she showcased that. I mean, all her theater work, well, she did have Barnum in the before she was even in the World of Corey DeGarp, but that's before people knew her. But yeah, just Maxie, and not many people saw that, like I said. So I think this was definitely kind of eye-opening for people and really laying the tracks for Sunset Boulevard a few years
Oh,
later.
absolutely, absolutely. I wonder if people were like watching the sketch and being like, Andrew Lloyd Webber is sitting in his hotel watching Nelson being like, I have a good idea.
Yes, Norma Desmond is in your future, Miss Close. Yes,
Yes, yes, of course. That's me, Andrew Lloyd Webber would say.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. But it was really nice. I liked seeing that showcase from her. And she really does like get that diction really well of like that Julie Andrews kind of energy. So I think the last sketch was also really great for her, where she is playing this elderly woman. She has the pearl necklaces and she has this fur coat and she's sitting on her porch. And the joke of the sketch is that she is jealous of her sister for getting all the attention at her sister's funeral. That's the joke. And being like, nobody had a kind word to say about me. And she gets a lot of funny little, voice work once again. I think you said while we were watching it that reminded you of what she would do later with Hillbilly Elegy.
Yeah, it's really bananas to watch this sketch and see Glenn Close 30 years from now in the sketch. She
Yeah,
looks, despite the fact that she's young here, but they made her up. She looks like how she looks now,
pretty much.
which is I definitely know is based on how I've seen old age makeup in a variety of TV and film is very difficult to do. But
Yeah.
what I really liked about this sketch is that like it is a funny sketch and it has a really great button on the end of the sketch where she says, "I should have been the one who died at the funeral."
It should have been my funeral.
It's
Yes.
funny. That's a great button on the sketch. But like it's a really great dramatic like performance. She's like that's like, yes, we're here for SNL for her to be funny, but also don't forget that she is like one of the great dramatic actresses of her generation.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, showing that theater background. So I would say overall, it's a very good showcase for Glenn's versatility. She gets to sing, she gets to parody her most famous character, she gets to do all these goofy line deliveries. So I pretty much enjoyed myself, despite some of the weirdness and the lack of context for some of the other details within the show. You know?
Yeah. As we said earlier, she's really comfortable here on the show. And
Yeah.
I think she does a great job in this first
Yeah.
episode.
It does not seem like her first time. So, anything else before we talk about the second episode?
Nope, let's get into the next one a few years later.
Okay. So, her second SNL episode, second and now most recent, sadly, was on December 12th, 1992. And I don't think she was really promoting anything at the time. Her only other acting role in 1992 was Death in the Maiden on Broadway, which is this very intense play about trauma and whatnot, in which she played a lead role. She won her second Tony Award in May of that year. But yeah, that was pretty much what she had going on in 1992. And this episode was the Christmas episode, a very special time every year for SNL. So the cast at this time, we had the repertory players of Dana Carvey, Chris Farley, Phil Hartman, Mike Myers, Chris Rock, Rob Schneider, Julia Sweeney, and the Weekend Update anchor Kevin Nealon. And then we had the so-called middle players, which were Ellen Cleghorn, Melanie Hutzell, Tim Meadows, Adam Sandler, and David Spade, with Al Franken as a featured player. So, thoughts on this episode?
I don't think this one is as good as the first episode, but there are bits from here that I do like. I feel like she's not in as much of this one as the other one.
Yes, I think we should just establish for anyone who is following along and watching these on Peacock, they cut out a significant amount of sketches for some reason from this episode. I'm not really sure why, because some of the other sketches I found online, it's not like they were copyrighted or anything, so I don't know why that is.
Yeah, there's at least two or three sketches with Glenn Close in them that are not on the version on Peacock. I mean, you can find them online, and we watched them, and I liked them, but they're not in
Right.
the version on the regular streaming. This monologue is very sweet, but like a little odd, I think,
Sure.
because I don't think it's a bit. I think it's just Christmas time in New York City, and she brings out locals from her neighborhood upstate to sing Silver Bells.
Yes. She invites a firefighter, a plumber, her mailman, all the locals. And I did find it very sweet. At first I was like, is this going to be a little condescending maybe? I don't know. But yeah, it's sweet and she helps them stay on pitch, which is very helpful. I did wonder as I was watching, like, does she actually know all these guys? Or are these just like local hires? I don't know.
Yeah, like
But
is this a bit? Like I can't
Yeah.
tell if it's like a bit or if it's like sincere. I think it's sincere.
Yes. I also found in that People article, she said, I asked all the people that I saw every day, the guy at the gas station, the guy at the grocery store, the guy who set up birdhouses all over the place, the firemen, the policemen. They all came and it was during a snowstorm. My God, it was hilarious.
I don't think it's hilarious, but I
I
think
don't
it
think
is
it's hilarious, but
but it is kind. It's a kind thing to do to let these normal Americans on television.
Not normal Americans. The normies.
Yes, the normies got to be on SNL,
The
and
normies have infiltrated SNL.
one of them was very shy, so they overdubbed him during the sketch,
Yeah, that was
and
cute.
that was cute.
Yeah. But I think overall for me with this episode, a little more disappointing. I feel like she was a little more in that straight man role position in a few of these sketches, maybe not as well utilized. There are also multiple sketches where it's just like this one person character piece. Like we had the Queen Elizabeth cold open with Mike Myers. We had a very long Tori Spelling sketch, which fell flat for me. We had the Stuart Smalley sketch, Al Franken. And I think having all those like one person pieces, great for those individual people, but lessened Glenn's impact. And yeah, there's also a few sketches where she just isn't really funny. She was just kind of reacting and just maybe being natural, essentially. And I didn't really love that.
I think the big difference between the previous episode and this episode is that first episode, there's not a lot of big quote unquote A-list stars on the show at this
Right.
point.
Yeah.
And this second episode, we're witnessing in real time the rise of Adam Sandler as the big SNL star. So he is definitely the focus of a few sketches here.
And Mike
So,
Myers. Yeah.
yep, and Mike Myers as well. So we're re-entering that big star era of SNL, and I think because of that, they give her less to do.
Yeah. Which is a shame. I do think as an episode, though, it is a little more polished. It's a little sharper. I think it's a little closer to my sense of humor and a little goofier in that way. I think I like this cast a little more than the 1989 cast. So that kind of helped, I would say. But it was definitely a sophomore slump for Glenn for me, unfortunately. And it's sad that she never got the chance to do this again after this. She had so many opportunities between like the 101 Dalmatians year. Any time in the Damages era would have been fun. The Wife, there were many opportunities to promote things that it just never happened again for her. Granted, Lauren is usually not all that kind to older actors compared to the hot young things, unless they're his guys like Alec Baldwin or Steve Martin or whatever. But still, Glenn is so adept at comedy, as we've seen in this live setting, that it would have been nice to see her do this again. That's mostly what I was thinking about as I got to the end of this second episode.
Yeah, if there's one thing that I can tell you about SNL is that if you're a woman over 50, the chances of you hosting drop dramatically.
Yeah. So,
If you're a man over 50, you can host as many times as you want.
yeah, you're getting all kinds of those 5-timer jacket, 10-timer jacket. Oh, yeah. I do really like her in the What's the Best Way sketch, which was the first one for her, this game show, which features these New Englanders giving directions. She plays Katie, one of the guests. They've got these heavy Boston accents. It's kind of the same joke over and over, where they're just kind of talking in funny accents. Definitely a precursor to the Californians, I would say, but for New England. So we got some of the references.
I love this sketch because I understood what they were talking about. I get
Yes.
the sense that like people from I don't know if people from California like the Californians talking about going on the 10 and the 2 or
The
whatever,
405, yeah.
but I love hearing them talk about I-84. I was so thrilled. And I love Kevin Nealon as a host. The question being like, how many Duncans are there between Hartford and Sturbridge? And I'm like, I understand the reference.
You're like, I understand all those words.
I
Yeah.
know, I know 95, I know I-91, I know I-84. I'm hearing them talk about all these places I'm familiar with, and I'm like, I don't know if it's funny, but I know what's going on. So, more than I can say for the Ayatollah sketch in the first episode.
Fair enough. Yes, maybe it's a little bit more of that clapter more than laughter for us, but we definitely recognized a lot. There's this repeated reference about how they all like to do candlepin bowling. I guess that's a New England thing. So, yeah, I think Adam Sandler and Phil Hartman do outshine her a little bit, just like the specificity of Adam Sandler doing that classic Boston guy thing he does. And, Phil Hartman sort of taking his time with that very polite, almost Vermont, New Hampshire kind of kindness.
Yeah, the star of this sketch is Adam Sandler for sure. And
Yeah.
Glenn Close is in the sketch, but she's definitely not given too much to do here.
She does get a very funny line, though, when Kevin Nealon is like asking about going to Roxbury or something. And she's just like, what do you want to go there for?
That's funny.
Very good. Very good. It does take a bit of a weird turn with like Tim Meadows showing up as like a bushman with a
that's when I was
strong
like
sense
tugging
of
my
direction. Yeah.
I'm like, that's as Michael Che says, it's the 90s.
Yeah. But, it's fun. She makes some good use of her New England, Connecticut roots there. So I imagine she really helped to push that sketch along, would be my guess. We also have the weekend update. We can go back to that where Glenn does actually show up.
Yes, this is Kevin Nealon as the Weekend Update anchor. I
Yep.
think better than Dennis Miller,
Much better. Yeah.
where there's war in Somalia, the Clintons are moving into the White House.
Yeah.
We're dunking on the separation of Diana and Charles.
Yeah. Mostly dunking on Prince Charles.
Yep. And we have Adam Sandler as Opera Man.
Yes. I like that. And it's like at one point in that little sketch. Does that count as a sketch? I don't know.
I'd
I don't know
count it
what
as
to
a
call
sketch.
Weekend Update. Okay.
Yeah.
But yes, reuniting with his brother, played by who else but John Lovitz, who is back. He's not in the cast anymore, but back with Glenn again. I don't know if they have like some sort of friendship or relationship going on at this time, but
We really gotta ask if like does Glenn send John Lovitz a Christmas card every year? She might, I don't know.
yeah. Yeah. So reunited with his brother and his new wife, played by Glenn. I don't think she really gets a joke in that, but like she looks great with that long black hair. I was like, oh, this is kind of a new look.
Yeah.
And she gets to do her singing voice once again.
She's got the pipes.
Very funny though that she's doing like opera because she literally this same year is doing Meeting Venus, where she was overdubbed because she couldn't sing opera. But here she's pulling off some opera vocals pretty well, I would
Yeah.
say. I'm not an opera expert, but like she seemed pretty on pitch.
Sounds good to me as someone who doesn't know opera.
Yes, exactly. There's also a rather unfortunate sketch called Orgasm Guy. And it's just, again, one joke over and over again. Orgasm Guy, played by Rob Schneider.
Boo.
And it's like everything that is the least bit sensual, he does like this orgasm bit with his face and his body. And it's just very, very straight guy humor. I'll say that.
Hard F for me.
Yeah.
I did not write anything down for this sketch because I wanted to pretend I had not seen it.
Yeah. And it's just not really the kind of scene that works for Glenn and her sense of humor. She just has to react to all of his nonsense. Which
Yeah, she has
I
to
hate.
react to the weird faces Rob Schneider is making, as most people have to do in the course of their lives. Around Rob Schneider.
Right. Whatever he's saying or doing, people are like, oh boy, what's this guy's deal?
Yep.
So I also wanted to talk a little bit about this Tori Spelling sketch, which was kind of a curiosity for me. So Aaron Spelling's daughter. I don't know about you, but I feel like Melanie Hutsell here reminded me so much of Abby Elliott.
That I totally get that. I understand that, yeah.
The delivery, though, not my favorite. I think her comedic timing is off. I don't think there's even really a point to this sketch so much as just like taking pot shots at Tori Spelling for being spoiled and dumb and blonde and having affairs with her co-stars. And I don't know. I don't really think it was fleshed out at all.
No, this is another case of it's the 90s and we're gonna dunk on Tori Spelling. I mean, like, I don't think this really justified a sketch, but who knows? Maybe if I was there in 1992, I'd be like, oh, yes, it's very important that we devote 5 minutes to this.
Yeah. I think it feels like sometimes, how in today's SNL where they'll center like a featured player in a sketch and the audience isn't really sure about them yet. And so they're not really laughing all that much. And it starts to maybe affect the energy of the performer a little bit. That's kind of what I was getting from this, because I was just like, this is kind of bombing. Sorry to say to Miss Hutzel, but I can see why she didn't really last on the show.
Not a memorable player.
We also get a nice one character sketch with the Daily Affirmation, this recurring bit with Stuart Smalley, played by Al Franken, preparing to visit his dysfunctional family. His classic catchphrase, if people don't know, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. So more of that kind of self-help love energy, in this era. Unlike Melanie, though, I think he can definitely hold the attention of the audience and make them laugh. So
Yeah,
this was pretty
I
funny.
thought it was a good sketch. I thought it was like a nice like one man play,
Yeah.
for a few minutes. I can't complain about that. I liked it.
Then the only other sketch after this is the lesbian Christmas party sketch. First of all, fascinating to hear the nervous laughter from the audience just at the mere idea of two women in a relationship. That's kind
This
of
is
how it started.
this is such a fascinating sketch
Yeah.
because looking at it through the lens of 2025, this looks just like a regular party with a bunch of lesbians. There's nothing like funny or like a bit about the sketch. Like this feels like something that you could just go to on any given day here in New England. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel funny at all. It just feels like a nice, really warm, kind gathering of like-minded people. It's her, and is it Julia Sweeney as her wife? And they have a son who they're teaching good values to. And Kevin
I don't know who
Nealon,
that little boy is, but he's a very good actor, I
you
must say.
know, you know who I thought immediately. I was like, I bet Kevin wishes that was him as a baby, being
Yes.
like, yes, I'm the little son of lesbian Glenn Close,
Yes.
just
I felt
learning the
seen.
learning the guitar and having a really wonderful time.
Yes. Kevin Nealon
Kevin,
shows up as their sperm donor.
yep, and he's not mean or
Yeah.
like patronizing to the women. He is also really kind and welcoming to their queer lifestyle. It's tough for me to put myself in the head of writers in 1992 being like, "Oh, this is gonna be really funny." When I watched this sketch and be like, "This is a really like wonderful time."
It's just warm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's some light poking at, some sort of satirizing of political correctness and the left and whatnot that
Hmm.
kind of comes in over time. But overall, it's like, yeah, it almost feels like a little bit like what they would do on Portlandia, I think, eventually, kind of like, again, satirizing the left and that sort of thing,
Yeah.
but
I
not
mean, they're
really
like
any
it's
jokes.
right. It's like the it's like the big joke of the sketch is like, "Oh, they don't say it's Christmas. They say it's holiday season."
Right. Season's
And
greetings and all that. Yeah.
yes. But I would this is a sketch I would love to, much like Blue's Clues, just jump into the TV and be in this sketch. This is
Yeah.
just a
Seems
nice
nice.
a nice pleasant place to be in.
Really enjoyed Ellen Cleghorn too here. For me, she was the easy MVP of the scene. Just the way she projected was very funny.
Hmm.
Always an underrated performer, Ellen Cleghorn. But yeah, that's pretty much it for what's on Peacock. I mean, not in the episode that we found online was this one really funny sketch, I thought, which was this toast to Scrooge for A Christmas Carol, where it's like Bob Cratchit's wife, played by Glenn, still doesn't really like the changed man, Scrooge. Really funny setup. I love when Glenn gets to be kind of crotchety and prickly. There's another great voice there.
It's a good bit, and honestly, like a completely rational bit from Bob Cratchit's wife to be like, yesterday this guy was like the worst man in town, and now we're all cheersing
Yeah.
Ebenezer Scrooge. Like, how much sense does this make? And everyone's like, "Oh, we got to give him a second chance," and she's like, "No."
Yeah, she's very funny. She
Hmm.
actually gets to do things in that sketch, which is nice. The other one I wanted to mention, of course, is Coffee Talk, this recurring sketch of Mike Myers as Linda Richmond, and she has her sister Judy next to her talking about her daughter's engagement. More funny voice work from Glenn, getting all dolled up. She looks a little bit like she's in the Deliverance, just the way that she's all dolled up in that scene. Yeah. So I wish those two sketches were in the actual Peacock episode. Still don't really know why they're not there, but I think overall, definitely a step down from the first episode.
Yeah, not as good for Glenn for sure, and not as funny for me personally. Yeah, it does
Yeah.
feel like they've got a little bit more control over the show,
Hmm.
but this definitely feels like we're starting to get into an era where we're focusing more on the players than on the host.
Yeah. And also something when you look back on this era, even into like the early 2000s, it is very much a boys' club going on. I mean, Julia Sweeney is literally the only repertory female cast member at that time. So, it has a little bit of that frat energy at times.
Yeah, I'd
Not
agree
always
with
my
that.
favorite. So, hopefully we see her again. She is still funny. She is still goofy. Wake Up Dead Man is coming around the corner. Let's invite back Glenn. Why the hell not?
I'm
I'd like to see it.
sure I'm sure that they'll call Daniel Craig to do the episode, but let's just bring a few fun cameos
Yeah,
from the movie in there. That would be nice to see.
that would be cute.
Yep.
Yes. Anything else on SNL before we move on to Hook?
No, I don't have anything else to say about these episodes of SNL. I'd say if you're gonna watch one of them, definitely watch that first one from the 80s. I think it's
Yes.
really worth your time. Whether you're a big Glenn fan or not, I think it's a great SNL episode. So definitely worth watching.
Okay. Let's move on to her big cameo in Hook. So, for this, I don't think we need to get into a whole discussion about the film itself because she has a very small role in the grand scheme of things. She's in about 1 minute of this 141-minute film. But I think we'll have some fun talking about this one briefly because this is oddly one of her more remembered performances from this stage in her career in the early 90s. Certainly more so than Meeting Venus, which we talked about last week, that came out this same year. So this was kind of a spontaneous casting because Glenn was visiting Robin Williams, the star of Hook, her old friend from Garp, who she has remained friends with. She was visiting with her young daughter, Annie, and then the director of Hook, Steven Spielberg, just straight up asked her, "Do you want to be a pirate?" To which she said, "Sure." We know Glenn, she's game for anything. And so she was made up in this elaborate pirate costume with this great sort of salt and pepper wig and facial hair, full beard, mustache, fake eyebrows.
Big old beard on Glenn.
Yes, her skin was made to look super tan, almost sunburnt. I think maybe she even had false teeth as well, not positive, but big baggy clothes. It's a hell of a look. I'll say that.
She looks like a pirate.
Yeah. So good job on that, costume designers. But yeah, to set up Hook a little bit here, this is essentially a sequel to the events of Peter Pan, with Peter having now grown up and lost his childlike wonder in favor of becoming a career focused corporate lawyer and family man, played by Robin Williams. He has no memory of his adventures in Neverland when he was younger, and one day, when they're visiting an older Wendy, played by Maggie Smith, in London, Peter's children are kidnapped by Captain Hook, played by Dustin Hoffman. And Peter starts down the path of remembering his younger days when Tinker Bell, played by Julia Roberts, helps whisk him away to Neverland to save his children. And we come to find out that Hook has been kind of missing their rivalry and resenting that Peter grew up and hoped he could lure Peter back by kidnapping his kids. So, before we talk about Glenn's cameo, just wanted to establish if we had any overall thoughts about Hook, because we both watched this for the first time earlier this year as we were following along with Blank Check and their Steven Spielberg series. So neither of us grew up with it, but what do you think?
I think very much in the same vein as I think the Goonies. If you did not watch Hook when you were young and develop that attachment there, it might not really land for you. We both watched it for the first time earlier this year, and I gotta say, I don't think Hook is a great movie. I don't think it's a disaster, but I really like it's just not something for me personally. It feels really shaggy. I think that it is too long. I think the Julia Roberts stuff in this movie does not work. It's just the tone is really tough to figure out here. It feels kind of like a very expensive boondoggle, personally speaking. I'm sure there's people out there that really grew up with this movie and have like a tight attachment to it. I'm not one of them. In my personal Spielberg rankings, it's like in the bottom quarter of his movies for me.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Hook. I know it's kind of a cheap shot to and not all that original, but like watching it definitely made me feel like, okay, Steven Spielberg is working through some things here, working through his guilt maybe over being a workaholic father and like trying to recapture his childhood wonder. Plus, he had his own relationship with his father. And, I know that was a big inspiration for the film. And it's very obvious, I would say, if you have a sense of Spielberg and his backstory, what is motivating this. Actually, to that point, I think a lot of his work really takes on a new context now having seen The Fablemans, which we talked about on that 2022 episode of my Best Actor series. But I remember liking so much of this film whenever, like, before they went to Neverland, loved Maggie Smith as Wendy. I think Robin Williams makes sense for this lead role here. He can definitely play that jaded cynic type who also maybe has that repressed innocence and whimsy and whatnot that eventually comes out. I think the Neverland sequences are pretty hit or miss. I'm not really into the Lost Boys. Sorry. I think Julia Roberts is horrendously miscast. It's not her fault really, but like what an odd choice to play Tinkerbell. I still don't understand it. But, some of the ship stuff, the swashbuckling, I think is well captured. And we have a few performances here like Dustin Hoffman as Hook and Bob Hoskins as Smee that really work well and, play into the tone of it really well. But definitely a mixed bag for me.
Yeah, I agree here. I love how Julia Roberts was not on set with anyone for I think 95% of the film.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's really like it feels like a weird precursor to nowadays where you're like, oh, we're just gonna shoot this stuff on a green screen or a blue screen, and you're not
Totally.
gonna really be with anybody. I'll tell you one thing, this film looks is expensive.
Yes, you can tell. Yeah. So there's that. I don't love the film, but to talk about Glenn's scene, she shows up about 40 minutes into the film playing a pirate named Gutless. Not named in the film, but that is the name in the credits. So yeah, she's playing a male character here, Gutless, who is one of Hook's crew members, and the scene is set up where Hook is kind of questioning whether his crew really believed in him that he could get Peter back, and everyone falls in line, but Hook is suspecting that one of them did not, and as he descends the stairs on the ship, the crowd kind of parts and reveals Glenn here as Gutless, and Hook gets him to admit that it was indeed him who didn't really believe in Hook. And then Hook then orders him into this so-called boo box, which is this big wooden chest, and the other henchmen toss some live scorpions into the box with him. So, meeting a rather grisly fate over the course of this 1 minute. Quite disturbing. But, yeah. What do you think of Glenn's cameo here?
Well, let me talk about this 1 minute cameo in
Yes.
Hook.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty funny. I don't
Yeah.
know what the, I here's what I'll tell you. I don't want to be in the boo box. Boo box
No.
scene's pretty bad. She's like,
Boo to the boo box. Yeah.
yep, she admits that she didn't believe that he could beat Peter Pan, and she goes boo hoo hoo, and he's
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what this means? You gotta go in the boo box. And she really I gotta tell you, she really commits to the fear of being put in the boo box. She's
Yes.
kicking and screaming, and they throw in the box, and that's the last you see of Glenn Close.
Yes. I love this cameo down. I think she is so fun. She absolutely brings the theatrics and the drama, and also I think nails the tone of probably what Spielberg was looking for with this movie, even with this 1 minute of screen time. You know, like I said, I didn't grow up with this movie, but I was looking at some of the comments on the YouTube video of this scene, and there were multiple commenters who said this scene always scared them as a kid. And I can certainly see why. It's kind of terrifying when you watch it, the way Hook just kind of like narrows in on Gutless, and then like she's really bringing the fear in a very intense way, and her screaming is like really kind of, it pierces through you. Her facial expressions too is just like pure anguish. This character knows what is about to happen. He knows that Hook is going to punish him somehow, and then him realizing that it's going to be this boo box, just the stakes being raised higher by the live scorpions too. It is pretty frightening, this 1 minute, like the way that it builds up. So one of my favorite scenes in the movie for sure.
Yeah, it's short, it's sweet, and it is effective.
Yeah, just to kind of break it down a little more, I think there's a fun bit of comedy when Glenn is first seen, when Hook is like walking on the deck of the ship, and Hook is accusing someone in the crowd of disloyalty, and they all kind of point at each other, like that duck meme being like, me.
Yeah.
Yes, but then it's Glenn and Robin Williams next to each other. Robin is in disguise as Peter, as, you know, in disguise, standing next to each other, and they point at each other in a very slapsticky way, almost like Three Stooges. And Hook is asking, like, you bet against me bringing Pan back here, didn't you? And I love how in her delivery, and she just doesn't miss a beat, just like looking him dead in the eye and being like, no. Very funny. And being like, tell your captain the truth. And Gutless just immediately folds, bursting into tears. And again, I love her voice, the line delivery when she's like, I did. And then, yeah, the second Hook calls for him to be sentenced to the boo box, just that look of sheer terror on her face is pretty chilling, I would say. Pleading for his life, and that scream, I think that is what kind of unnerved people.
Yeah, I agree. It's a fun little bit. I'm glad that they got her to do it, because I feel like that's the sort of scene where you want to have a cameo in there.
Yeah.
I'm glad that she was just there on the day, you know, because that's really all that it comes down to here, is that like she's visiting Robin, and they're happy to have her on the thing, you know, just set her up in the makeup trailer, and you know, do this in 15-20 minutes and you're in and out.
This did raise several questions that I did want you to answer. First one is, do you think Gutless actually did bet against Hook, or did he just kind of fold under pressure?
I think that Gutless the pirate absolutely did not believe in Captain Hook and absolutely folded under pressure. After all, his name is Gutless, so it really says all it needs to be said.
With a name like that, what do you expect?
Yep.
Yes. Also, another question I thought of, where do you think they got those live scorpions?
I think they probably went into the jungle. It was like, oh, we got to grab some scorpions and spiders and snakes just in case we have to throw some poor person into the boo box.
Yeah. And the other question I had is like, what do you think happens from here for Gutless? Is he just eaten up by the scorpions?
I don't think
see him after that.
I don't think that Gutless gets eaten by the scorpions, because they only threw like 2 or 3 scorpions in there. I think it's just a dark box with a bunch of scorpions. I think probably the next day.
Did they let him out?
They let him out.
Throw him overboard?
They let him out of the boo box. They let him out of the boo box, and he's tasked with like cleaning the toilets or something for a week, and then he's back on the crew, just doing the old pirate thing.
Right.
I don't think this is the end of Gutless. I think there's a real possibility of getting a little made-for-TV movie about the adventures of Gutless the pirate, and how he constantly chickens out of all the adventures and really is not a reliable pirate.
But then he finally gets up the courage to take revenge on Hook.
Yes, and becomes Gutful the pirate.
Yes.
I don't know.
Gutful.
Yuck. I'm just thinking of the opposite of
that.
The opposite of Gutless.
Yeah. I also want to see Gutless's backstory. How did he get on the ship? You know?
Yeah. How do you get How did he get the name Gutless? I'm sure it's
Yeah,
because of his cowardly disposition.
there's that.
It
But yes,
here's another question. Is this the first time Gutless has been thrown in the boo box? Because he certainly seems to be familiar with it.
I think he has seen other people be thrown in the boo box.
Hmm.
And yes. But I don't know. I think there's just a nice kind of like almost childlike vulnerability despite him being like this older pirate that is, I don't know. It's very striking to me. I did also want to read some YouTube comments that I found that I took a few notes of because some of the comments under this scene were truly wild, and I want you to react to some of this. Here's what some people said. Hook put Cruella in her place, showing her who's the better Disney villain between the two.
Disagree.
Another one, very innocent. I feel a little bad for that pirate.
Agree with that one. I do feel bad.
Yes. Another one, sounds like Alex Forrest screaming.
What do you think, as someone who's seen Fatal Attraction multiple times? Does that
A little
sound like
bit.
a little bit of a Alex
Yeah,
Forrest
I
in
think
the
so.
scream?
Yeah. Actual nightmare fuel can think of not many worse fates.
That's
True.
it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Definitely top tier.
Yeah. Another truly wild comment that I had to note, even though it doesn't have to do with Glenn. Robin Williams, rest his soul. Bob Hoskins, rest his soul. Dustin Hoffman, best his role.
Really, just that opens up such a can of worms to be like. I guess it's very important to salute these lost actors, but B, also rhyme
Yes.
and also disagree that this is Dustin Hoffman's best role.
Well,
That is a wild take.
whoever said that, they thought they ate with that comment.
I don't think they're eating. I'm not eating whatever they're making. They're not cooking.
Okay. Okay. As a kid, I found this very disturbing because I thought grown men weren't afraid of anything. So this really troubled me.
This no. I I would love to meet the person who's like first grasp of how terrifying the world could be was from watching this scene in Hook.
Yeah. Very
Recognizing
traumatizing.
recognizing that adults can feel fear.
Yeah. Grown men at that. Yes. And then here's my favorite, which truly I don't even know what to make of this. This is reminiscent to how I ultimately ended up baptized. The minister at the church straight up pointed me out, and instead of being mad, I accepted it and became Christian. With a rolling on the floor laughing emoji right after that.
I gotta tell you, I'm also rolling on the floor laughing. I
A lot
cannot
to unpack there.
I cannot make heads or tails of what is going on there. YouTube comments.
Yes. They say don't read the comments, but sometimes it's fun.
Sometimes it's
Not
fun.
gonna lie. Sometimes it's fun. Not very toxic in this particular video. So that's nice.
I would certainly hope not. I hope there's not a lot of toxicity in the comments for this 2-minute video of one segment of Hook.
Actually, there were a few that were referencing Cruella and saying like he got that bitch or whatever. But I'm like, okay,
Oh, calm
scroll
down,
past
calm
that.
down. Keep
Calm
going,
down.
keep going.
Yes. Anyway, that's Hook. A fun little scene. You can watch it on YouTube. So this is the part of the show where we would normally talk about the release of whatever we talked about. For SNL, there's not much to say about her 2 episodes as far as like ratings or awards. This was a time before there were hosts nominated at the Emmys in the guest categories. If that were the case, I'm not sure if she would have gotten in. Probably more for her 89 episode than 92. But, you know, I would say she would be nomination worthy, wouldn't you?
I'd agree with that, at least for the first one.
Yeah. But then for Hook, we can talk about that release. So that was released in December 13th, 1991, where it was the #1 movie at the box office. Not a lot of people knew at the time that that was Glenn as Gutless. So that's been kind of a fun surprise that people learned later on. But other movies in the top 10 that weekend included The Last Boy Scout, Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country, The Addams Family, Beauty and the Beast, My Girl, Cape Fear, For the Boys, An American Tail, Fievel Goes West, and Curly Sue.
It's the 90s.
Yeah.
It's the 90s, and we're starting to hit that Disney Renaissance. Very exciting for me personally as a 1-year-old baby.
Yes. If you were a kid in 1991, though, I think you were eating pretty good that holiday season.
Oh
Lots of
yeah.
good family-friendly stuff there. So, and if you're not, then you can go enjoy Cape Fear.
Yep.
So, anyway, Hook got 5 Oscar nominations, and it made a lot of money. It was the number 6 movie of that year, but wasn't really a hit with critics. So, Spielberg also criticized his own film over the years. So, do you have any theories as to why you feel like it didn't really connect on a critical level?
I think it's for a lot of the stuff that you mentioned and that we talked about is that it feels very messy. It feels too long and maybe a little bit too expensive. It is maybe a little too childish for adults and too scary for children. So it's
Right.
tough to figure out who this movie is for, other than maybe Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, some directors like to work out their issues through film rather than in therapy, and that's okay. That's okay. But yeah, I think there may have been a little bit of backlash in the critical community to Spielberg at this time. I feel like this was kind of that fallow period a little bit with Empire of the Sun and other movies that were kind of in between the Jaws and, Color Purple, and then eventually getting to Schindler's List and Jurassic Park, where things are picking back up again. This is a bit of that not so great era for Spielberg.
Yeah, we're in that down period before he reclaims his title as King of Hollywood.
Yeah, I just remembered Always. Remember Always?
Yeah, starring Audrey Hepburn in her final film role as
Yeah.
Hap. I gotta tell you, I didn't love Always, but I did like seeing Audrey.
Yeah, very sweet. Great Holly Hunter performance too.
Yep.
But yes, obviously Glenn was never going to be nominated for this, but it's a interesting failure, I would say, as a movie. Well, to get to our final segment, we are going to rate Glenn's performances on a very specific scale. So first of all, thinking about her hosting stints on SNL, would you say she's ready for her close-up, one of her best performances? Is it low Glenergy, not one of your favorites, or somewhere in the middle, close but no cigar?
I'd say, do we want to do both episodes as one or each separate?
You can do whatever you want.
All right, I'm gonna do for the first episode, I'm gonna say that she's close but no cigar, bordering on the higher Glenn,
Ready for her close-up.
ready for her close up, bordering like in between the two, because
Yes.
it's certainly a show of her comedic and musical talents, and it's just a really impressive feat from her and a great episode of the show. And I would put the second episode as low Glenergy because she's just not in enough of it, and she just doesn't get those highlight performances like the first one.
Yeah, for me, I would say high, close but no cigar for her first episode, and like just barely over the line of close but no cigar for her second. I think if you watch those clips online of her in the Scrooge sketch and then in the Coffee Talk sketch, that kind of boosts it up for me. But watching it on Peacock would definitely be like, this is not a memorable episode for Glenn at all, which is unfortunate. So yeah, that's that. I think people should definitely check out that 89 episode. But for Hook, would you say she's ready for her close-up? Close but no cigar? Low Glenergy? What do you think? I know it's only a minute, but
It's very difficult for me to judge this scene that is only 1 minute. I'm gonna say that she is close but no cigar here. This just feels like for me personally, just like a middle of the road performance because it just isn't for me personally enough time on screen to justify ready for her close up.
Right.
But it's also she's doing something here. She is giving a performance, so I can't give it a low Glenergy, and that's why I'm landing right in the middle.
yeah, I am the same. Definitely close but no cigar. I think she makes the absolute most of every single second she is on screen, and I think if she had more to do, it may even be close to being ready for her close-up, because I think she really fills in a lot with this 1 minute character, even though she probably barely even thought about it in terms of any kind of like work going into it outside of just saying her lines and inhabiting whatever the scene needed. But that's what makes her a great actress, is that you could still sense that history from her. So there you go. This was fun. Seb, thank you for joining me.
Of course, anytime. I love coming on the show, talking about actresses and the Oscars and movies and TV and SNL.
All of it. So where can people find more of you on the internet if you wish for them to find you?
I'm on Twitter at Sebastian Gronback, and I'm on Letterboxd under the same name. I'm not a big poster, so
Why not?
I don't know. I don't like putting myself out there. I'm a very private individual, but you can
Wow.
certainly see whatever I'm watching on Letterboxd, where I'm posting all the time.
Yes, certainly. Thank you all so much for listening. You could find me at Kevin_Jacobsen on Twitter and Instagram, just Kevin Jacobsen, no underscore on Blue Sky. And you can listen to my Oscar-themed podcast, And the Runner-Up Is, for coverage of every Best Actress race, including 1987 and 2022, both really fun episodes we did together. And so that's And the Runner-Up Is on all platforms. And to keep up with the world according to Glenn on social, follow The Glenn Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Rate, review, and follow the world according to Glenn on all podcast platforms. And with that, I will bid you all adieu.